Photographers. I'm a photographer. I just happen to also be a lawyer licensed in Tennessee. And I wanted to address some of the questions that I've seen come up in the last couple of weeks since this coronavirus outbreak has been going on. A lot of your businesses are being affected because of the coronavirus and the limitations that are being put on to organized events and group gatherings. So I wanted to just give you some information about force majeure and when that comes into play. I'm seeing a lot of this happen, it appears, when it's not really a force majeure event. So be careful about that. Are you the one canceling the event on somebody who's hired you to do a job? And that may or may not be something that would pass muster in a force majeure questioning. So the force majeure is intended to be something that totally prevents a legal operation of a contract and the performance of a contract. So if there's a government regulation out there that says, hey, you can't shoot pictures of anything, and now you have a contract that says you have to shoot pictures, well, that government regulation would make it illegal for you to carry on your performance. That would be a force majeure event. When we take a look at the wedding industry specifically, and that's where I'm seeing a lot of these questions come up with the event planners that are moving weddings and photographers having to rearrange their schedules and accommodate, and all this stuff that's going on. It's just throwing everything up in the air right now. Well, the force majeure may or may not be what you want to look at. There are other excuses to a contract for non-performance. One of those would be impracticability, impossibility, and then there's also frustration of purpose. So, is the coronavirus a force majeure event? Well, it's hard to say. It's not as simple as you would think. It does cause complications, but there are cases out there that says that a person would have to use reasonable appliances and still perform the contract. And when we talk about reasonable appliances, we don't look at things that are costly. We don't look at the money of it necessarily, but we're looking at, can it be done? But when it comes to weddings, I think frustration of purpose is really the one that we look at. So let's say that you're an event venue and you were contracted with a bride and groom to hold their wedding, and their wedding is going to take place at your venue. Well, are you, the venue, canceling the contract because of this coronavirus to the bride and groom? It's my belief, my opinion, that the answer is you can't. You don't do that. Your purpose of the contract is to provide a venue for a bride and groom to come in and have a wedding. And short of any governmental regulation that prevents that from happening, then a venue most likely cannot cancel that contract or breach that contract, if you will, excuse their performance. So a bride and groom could still come to your venue and get married. But if you're the bride and groom contracting with the venue, then it changes. You see, a bride and groom's purpose for coming to your venue is most likely so that we can have a big gathering of friends and family of 50, 100, 200 people. If there's a regulation that says, hey, I can't do this, or it's not reasonable, or something like that, I can't bring these people in, then that frustrates the purpose and it would excuse the performance of the contract on the bride and groom. But a bride and groom who cancels that, the question then becomes, did they pay you a deposit? And then what happens with that deposit? The answer there doesn't seem to be clear at all. I can't find any clear answer that says what would happen with that deposit. There is some case law out there that says that the gains and losses fall where they lay at the time of the frustration. So that means that if they pay the deposit and then cancel, that's where it is, and nobody has to return the deposit, and there's no further performance of the contract. But there's also a potential claim for unjust enrichment, saying, hey, we rented the venue, you didn't do anything else other than sign this contract saying your venue would be available on a certain date, and therefore you would be unjustly enriched by that deposit by not having to perform anything else. So there is a reasonable claim for that may come into play. The venue may then argue and say, well, we held your date, we reserved your date, we had your date available, and we're still willing to perform, but you're not. It does frustrate your purpose. And maybe they get a frustration on purpose, but then you get to keep the deposit. So the same thing happens for photographers as well. It's like, can you still shoot the photography? Probably. Almost certainly, yes. But then the bride and groom, the purpose of having photography is their entire wedding, showing their friends and family all this stuff together, then that purpose is frustrated. So the bride and groom may be able to excuse their performance of the contract, and then the photographer is in a similar situation as to the venue. So I hope this kind of explains that a little bit, and maybe it brings up more questions to you, maybe not, but hopefully it answers some. If you feel like it's been beneficial, I'd appreciate a contribution. I got a Venmo account. You can use a QR code or at SK McNeil, that's with 2 L's, and you can contribute to my Venmo account, or just take the information for what it's worth and let it be. Thank you.